Hi again, Mark here from TalkingBass.net. This week I'm starting the first in a short series of lessons devoted to bass fills. We'll start with some basic chord tone patterns, then we'll introduce some scales into the mix, a few chromatics, and then we'll venture into a few jazzy extras using chord and scale substitutions. So you can insert fills wherever you like in a tune, but they're more common as a transition from one section to another. So that could be something big, like a verse into a chorus, or just to signal the end of a 4-bar chord sequence. We're going to look at a simple 4-bar chord progression in the key of D. We'll take a progression that outlines the key very well and that gives us a predictable journey back into the tonic chord. So we'll look at a 1-6-2-5 progression in the key of D, which is D major 7, B minor 7, E minor 7, and A7. Okay? Okay, so that's a 4-bar chord progression round and round. I'm going to play each chord for 1 bar, and we're going to have a fairly light, jazzy 16th note shuffle feel, which with the backing track will sound like this. So in terms of the notes I'm playing there, I'm just hanging around in this kind of middle area around the 5th fret. So we've got D, 5th fret of the A string, B, 7th fret of the E string, E, 7th fret of the A string, and then the A, 5th fret of the E string. So on each one, we've got the rhythm. Okay, and we're going to play our fill on the A7. So that's going to lead us back into chord 1. So we've got that fill at the end of the 4-bar sequence leading back into the first bar. So in this lesson, we're just going to start really simple by using the basic chord tones for our fills. So because we're going to be filling on the A7, we're going to be using the notes of the A7 chord. The A7 chord tones. So there's the A7. So the notes of the A7, the arpeggio, we're going to have A, C sharp, E, and G. Okay, so in terms of the construction of it, we have a major triad with a flattened 7th or minor 7th. So we've got the root notes, major 3rd, perfect 5th, minor 7th. A, C sharp, E, and G. So just there in that position for the A, we've got the 5th fret of the E string, then we've got C sharp at the 4th fret of the A string, E at the 7th fret of the A string, and then the G at the 5th fret of the D string. So that's our 4 notes of the A7 chord, and then we can extend it further just to give us a few more notes in there. So if we carry on going up, once we get to the octave there, we've got the A, 7th fret of the D string, and then we could also put in the C sharp there up at the 6th fret of the G string, and we could even extend it a little further and go up to the E there at the 9th fret of the G string. And let's take the G down there as well at the 3rd fret of the E string. So we've got a nice little extended A7 chord there. We've got quite a few chord tones to play with. Okay? Now, if you don't know anything about intervals or chord construction or how to use chord tones, I deep dive into all of this from the absolute basics in the Chord Tone Essentials course over at TalkingBass.net. Again, I'll link in the info below and in the on-screen card. In Chord Tone Essentials, you'll learn the construction principles for every chord that you'll ever encounter, how to play the chord tones all over the fretboard, and most importantly, how to apply them in your bass lines, fills, and even solos. So if you want to know about chord tones, check it out. So let's try using some of those chord tones of A7 to create some fills. So first of all, we'll just try a simple arpeggio up and down. Okay, so this is going to be taking place on that A7 chord. We'll have a little bit of rhythmic interest in there, and here it is first of all with the backing track. So in isolation, for that fill, we have A for a beat there to start, and then we just come up the arpeggio and then come back down. Okay, so when we come up, we're just coming up in, shuffle 16ths, up to the 7th there, the G, and then we come down on offbeat 16ths, down to the A. So, slowly. Okay, so I've got a little ghost note in there before the return to the A. Okay. So just play round and round that, just getting used to that rising and falling motion of the arpeggio, and try to get used to those little offbeat 16ths there on the descent. They can be a little bit tricky to get used to at first. You're on the offbeat as you're coming down, but it's all good practice for your rhythm. Remember, there's a complete breakdown of all of this over at TalkingBass.net, and you can download the PDF of all the lesson material, or the tab, sheet music, all of that stuff. So just follow the link in the info below, and after you've practiced that fill for a few times, you can try it with the backing track. Previous fill, we started our arpeggio here at the low A at the 5th fret of the E string, and that's because that's where we were in terms of the bass line. So after the E, we came down to this A, and then it makes sense to have a fill starting on that A to lead us back into the D, okay? Now, if we had played up to the high A here for a little bit of variation, so 7th fret of the D string, then it makes sense to have another fill that we can use to lead back into that D starting up here. So if I'd have played from the E, I've moved up to this A, we want something to lead us from there down to here. So with the backing track, I'm just going to play a fill coming down from that A. So again, very, very simple riff, just using the chord tones to come down from that A to the D. And the bare bones of this is simply the descent of A, G, E, C sharp. So 7th fret, 5th fret D string, 7th fret, 4th fret on the A string. Okay, but just to give it a little bit more spice and flavour, we're actually going to use the E there for a little skip. So E, 7th fret of the A string, we start there, and then we play. So we have E, A, E, so both 7th fret, A string and D string, and then we get the G and come down, okay? Okay, so starting on the A, 1, 2. So 1, 2. And that's it, that's the fill. So again, with the backing track, how it's leading back into the D. It's not just running around all over the place. We've actually got a kind of purpose there and a journey back from the A down to the D. And that's important to remember with these fills. You're not just playing something flashy for the sake of it. There's got to be a reason for it. You're moving from a place, maybe a little bit of interest in there, melodic or rhythmic, but at the end of it, you're wanting to lead back into the next note. So both of those fills were a little bit pedestrian from a rhythmic standpoint. So now let's try something a little bit more busy. You know, not too busy, but just a little bit more interesting. So let's have a listen with the backing track. And this fill, we're going to introduce a little bit of a 16th note triplet in there. So again, this fill uses only the chord tones, but we're going to expand the range a little bit. So we're going to move up onto the G string. And like I said, we've got this little triplet in there. So we're whipping up the arpeggio. So the arpeggio sounds like this. So again, we start on the A there, you know, just for a beat. And then we come up. So triplet, so triplet. And then we come down from the top there, from the C sharp, with offbeat 16th notes. So, and this is why I worked through all of these notes of the arpeggio earlier on in the lesson. So as we come up, we've got A, C sharp, E, G, A, C sharp, so 5th fret E string, 4th, 7th frets on the A string, then 5th fret, 7th fret on the D string, and then 6th fret up on the G string. And then we just come back down. Okay, so there's a little skip there coming from the G back to the E. So the offbeats there, on the high C sharp and the A and the G. Okay, so quicker. So it might take a little bit of getting used to with the speed of that triplet. But you just have to practice it round and round until you can, you know, get that little whipping action. And remember, we're going to be coming back into the D there. So if you're practicing this in isolation, don't just practice the fill. Add the D on at the end. Okay, so with the backing track. So again, just as with the second fill, let's try playing something starting at the high A, at the 7th fret of the D string. So with the backing track. So again, we've got a little bit of rhythmic interest in there with the triplet. And then we've got this cool little chord in there. So first of all, let's look at the triplet there. So we begin on the A, 7th fret of the D string for a beat, and then we have, so we've got A, G, E, G, A. All chord tones of A7 there at the top. So 7th fret, 5th fret D string, 7th fret A string, 5th fret D string, and then back to the 7th fret of the D string. So we've got the triplet there, triplet. And then we've got the slide up. So we slide up from the 5th fret of the D string up to the C sharp at the 11th fret of the D string. Then we just play the G at the 12th fret of the G string. Okay, we've got that nice little chord. Now, that chord is very, very common when played over dominant 7 chords. So if I was to play the A there below, you can hear there, that's the A7 chord. Okay, so that interval there is a tritone. Okay, so don't worry too much about any of the theory behind this, but it's a fairly evil sounding kind of interval. It's actually a diminished fifth or an augmented fourth, depending on the context. And it just so happens that's the 3rd and the 7th of the A7. So if I was to work through the A7, A, C sharp, E, G, we've got the A, C sharp, there's the first note, then we miss out the E, and then we have the G. So we've got the C sharp and the G. There it is. It's in there in the A7. So we just play that because it's got a lot of the character for that A7 in there. It's what gives it that bluesy kind of perverse tinge, okay? So, again, for the fill. Okay, and that's the fill. So, with the backing track. So that's our 4 fills. Now, one thing to really think about in coming up with your own fills is this aspect of rhythmic tension. In several of those fills there, I used syncopated offbeat 16th notes. Okay, so when I came up, okay, as I'm coming down, I'm playing on offbeat. Now, offbeat notes can create rhythmic tension. So as an example, here I'll just play a bar of 4/4 playing on each beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we don't really have much tension in there. It's just a very pedestrian beat. Now, if I just play on the off beat, so on the and of each beat, we'll get more tension. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? So as an example, just to show how this would be applied, I'm going to play a bar of offbeat 8th notes, but I'm going to play on beat 1 first of all. So we're going to have 1 and then the offbeat, and then I'm going to play back on the beat at the beginning of bar 2, so on beat 1. So that'll sound like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, so I play on 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay? And you can hear there that I'm creating tension on those offbeats and then resolving on beat 1 of the next bar. Okay? And that's the tension that I'm talking about. Now, if you were going to be playing offbeat 16th notes, let's think of the tempo that we had before. Da 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 da. So again, creating tension there and then resolving. So when we think about the first bass fill that we had, okay, again, I'm creating that rhythmic tension. So that's just something to think about whenever you're trying to come up with your own bass fills. Try to really, really milk that rhythmic tension in there because, like I said, these fills, we're on a journey leading back into our tonic chord, and we want to ramp up that tension so that then we resolve as we land on the tonic chord. So finally, I'll just play through each of those fills in turn with the backing track so we've got a bit of comparison, okay? Okay, so those fills should give you a little food for thought in terms of generating your own lines. You want to learn your chord tones and think rhythmically. And remember, we're looking to ramp up that tension to resolve in the tonic chord. I'm going to talk about this more and more as we move into all those crazy substitutions in the coming lessons. So remember to check out the Chord Tone Essentials course if you want to go much deeper into all of this stuff. It's a 3-module course that could totally change the way that you approach your bass playing. Just click on that link below and also like this video if it's helped and subscribe to the channel. Next week, we'll be looking at adding some scales into the mix. So I'll see you then.